Well, let's now welcome in Don Hutchison and Mark Ogden as well. Mark, they're talking about it. Well, Amorim himself is talking about it being one of the most difficult moments in Manchester United's history.
Well, they have been relegated before, so they have had, worse moments than this, but it's probably the worst in living memory. Certainly the worst in the Premier League era. This is Man United closer to the relegation zone than the Champions League positions, and they are playing like a relegation threatened team. The top scorer's got 4 goals, and he's not even in the team right now. That's Marcus Rashford. So, there's not a lot you can basically point to and say they'll be okay. They've got a worse defensive record than Everton. They've scored fewer goals than Leicester and Wolves. There's not a lot to point to, really. So I can see why Amorim's concerned, but a Man United manager shouldn't be saying we might be facing relegation, because that just sends the wrong message, and it's kind of defeatist in a way. And I am surprised. I thought he would still be trying to play the situation up, but he probably knows he's got to Anfield at the weekend, so what else could he say?
Yeah, it came across, Don, that he was saying, well, let me keep trying this because eventually it has to pay off rather than me just scrapping it all. That's what he's saying here, isn't he?
Well, that's what he's saying, but he's wrong and he's naive. And he's way off the mark if he thinks, and I'll quote him, he said, I have to sell my idea, I don't have another one. I mean, come on, I'm expecting a little bit more of this. Before the game, Kay, everyone had an idea what the scoreline would be and who would win, and it probably would have been 60-40 Newcastle. But once the team sheets came in, I was 100% sure Newcastle would win that game. Because, and I mean this with all due respect, because Casemiro and Christian Eriksen have been top-class professionals and brilliant players and won the absolute lot. But the combined age of those 2 guys in midfield, 64 years of age, 2 of them, by the way, going in against Newcastle's 3, of Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali and Joe Linton, who love to close down, love to trample all over players, love to get on the front foot, love to try and play little triangles. And for the first 25 minutes, 30 minutes of the game, it was men against boys. It was embarrassing. I was on comms for the game last night, and Man United, to me, last night looked weak. They looked small. They looked like children playing against a men's football side. They got nowhere near Newcastle. And then he actually abandoned these principles and brought Kobbie Mainoo on to try and shore up the midfield, which was the right thing to do. But it was far too late. If I can see that, and we all can see before the game, that he's going to go in there with 2 midfield against Newcastle's 3, surely him and his coaching staff would have thought, we can't do that against Newcastle. We'll get absolutely annihilated. So why wait? And this is what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for Amorim to make a change, because if I go to Vitor Pereira, who's been at Wolves, changed the club completely around within 3 or 4 days, got their first win on the board, they're unbeaten in 3, and they look like a different side. I'd love to know what he's selling to the players and what he's coaching behind the scenes, because he's far too honest. If journalists are saying to him, are you in a relegation battle? Yes. Are you easy to play against? Yes. Everything's just far too honest and defeated. I wouldn't expect Oliver Glasner or Sean Dyche to say, yeah, we're in a relegation battle, we're far too easy to play against. They'd come out fighting, they'd come out scrapping.
Well, he said, Robbo, we have to address it with honesty. I mean, is he being too honest, or is he taking the right approach?
He's been too honest in certain ways when he's talking about, and it's just there by Don. I've got one idea I'm trying to sell to the players. I haven't got another idea. Now, that's the difficult thing for a manager. If you've got a way of playing and it's been successful for you, and what he's saying is that if I go down the road and I'm trying to sell this to the players, and I'm doing this in training when I can every day, and we're trying to get the formation and the pattern, the style of football and the philosophy, if after 7 weeks you say, oh, hang on, it's not working, I'm going to do something else, then you waste that 7 weeks. But you also have to think, I've got to somehow win games. And yesterday, the formation that he put out and the players he put out on the field wasn't going to win that game against Newcastle. So he's got to balance it. He could have still played a similar system, but he could have played somebody else in that role rather than Zirkzee, who didn't really want to come back into midfield. You can still play somebody in there and say, I know he's not fit, and I know he was suspended. Fernandes or Mason Mount, if they were playing in that position, could have come back and helped the midfielder. But he could have done that with, as he did, Mainoo and Casemiro in midfield, and Eriksen playing that little bit further forward. So he got his tactics wrong, he got the personnel wrong, and he hasn't seemed to be able to get his ideas across to the players. The defenders don't know quite whether to squeeze up. They don't know quite whether to hold a line. They don't know when the ball comes into the box whether the farthest centre-half should get round on the cover, which Martinez didn't do on 2 occasions. And the same when he tried to play Isak offside on a couple of occasions. That looks to me as though they've done no work on the defensive side of the game. And that's the first thing you have to sort out when you go to a new football club. We have to be good defensively, and then we can move on to the attacking side and be more expansive. At the moment, he's just got to make sure they get a chance in games to get a result, because at the moment, they could get relegated.
Mark, if the feeling was that Ruben Amorim was superior to Erik ten Hag before, why does he have the record that he does right now?
It's a good question. I mean, I think he is superior to Erik ten Hag, but the players that he's got, Erik ten Hag maybe got more out of them that we actually believed he could have done, because they're not a very good squad. You know, Amorim's got in there, and I think it's more about his naivety. I think Don's right, there is a naivety there, maybe a bit of romanticism that he can get away with doing his way is best, but it's come into a league, he doesn't know the division, and you can tell that by the way that United are defending set pieces. He has no idea how to defend crosses and corners, which tells me that he's not had to deal with that in Portugal as he has done in England. You know, Lisandro Martinez has been at fault for virtually all of the goals that have been put into the box. So find a way to take out Lisandro Martinez from the danger area of marking the tallest centre forward in the other team. Let Harry Maguire take care of it. Let Matthijs de Ligt take care of it. There's a naivety there that is a worry, because he has to learn quickly. And I don't think he does. And like Don was saying, 2 against 3 against Newcastle midfield, he should have been aware of that before the game. But the lineup suggested he wasn't. So he's come into this division perhaps thinking that his last 2.5 years at Sporting Lisbon, which have been all successful, that he really knows what he's doing. Really, he thought it was the new special one. I don't know. But he isn't, because the way the results are going, it proves that he's not. But I do think that a lot of these players are now being found out that they are simply not good enough. They don't have the pace, they don't have the technique, they don't have the fitness. We've already lost, you've seen that Lindelof, Mount and Shaw have already been injured again. That Man United squad is terrible. And I think Amorim has found that out, and he's kind of exposing the frailties. But by doing that, he's made his own position much worse, because the players that he's relying on to get through to the summer are letting him down.
Let's talk about the fact that he has been talking about relegation with Manchester United, maybe being a little bit too honest now. But when you do take a look at the table, Manchester United are just 7 points above the drop zone. Don't forget, their next match is at Anfield against league leaders Liverpool. As Mark mentioned, Amorim himself said that relegation is a possibility right now. It's a difficult moment, Don, but relegation, Manchester United, really?
I don't think it'll happen, but I mean, how do you not have that conversation, the form that they're in? I mean, Crystal Palace played Chelsea, and I think they play Leicester in the game after. So if they get a positive result and they lose at Anfield, which is highly likely, they're going to drop down another place. So the league table in a few days' time could look very different. They could be slipping towards, and the form that they're in. This is not the Portuguese league when you play Benfica and you play Porto and you win a lot of the games. The mediocre sides, you turn them over 5 and 6s. The middle-ranked teams, you beat them. The teams in the Premier League, and you see the graphic there where they are, all the teams above them and some of them below them, the form that Wolves are in, everyone's capable of beating Man United. That's the problem. And he keeps telling us that they're no good. He's going to have to change. It's all his fault. They're leaking goals. They're easy to play against. They're in a relegation battle. It's all just very doom and gloom. He's not selling any positivity whatsoever. If you're a fan turning up, you want to hear a bit of fight and a bit of spirit from your manager, and you want him to turn around and go, listen, we'll figure this out. We're going to go to, I mean, honest to God, it'll be a massive test of his credentials if he goes to Anfield with only 2 men in midfield up against Liverpool's 3, because they got done 7 a couple of seasons back, and they got a 0-0 last year when they just about nicked a point and a couple of points dropped from a Liverpool point of view. But my word, I think Liverpool on a slot, the fans and their players will be hoping that he doesn't change a thing. Because if he doesn't change a thing, they'll get absolutely walloped.
Mark, tell us about how those comments about relegation have gone down after the press conference this morning in the press around town in Manchester.
Well, do you know something? That Ruben Amorim has still got a lot of credit in the bank with the United fans, because the United fans right now have got 2 main points in terms of protest. They're really against the owners, the Glazers primarily, and to Jim Ratcliffe. They think the club's being run really badly. But they've really got it in for the players. And you saw that when Joshua Zirkzee was taken off last night and he was cheered. Not he was cheered, the decision was cheered. I've never seen anything as brutal as that in my time covering United, that the fans actually were mocking Joshua Zirkzee, because the United fans feel that the new players and the old players have consistently let the team down. They've not delivered. So they basically want the shock therapy that Ruben Amorim is promising. They think it's what the club needs. But it can be too shocking at this stage of the season because it's not delivering results. So Amorim still has the faith of the fans on their side, but I do think that the fans have been a bit naive as well as he is, thinking that this will work. You have to play it softer at times. You have to find a way to win. That is all he has to do now. Forget his principles, find a way to win. Now, winning at Anfield is unlikely. The next game after that is Arsenal away. Then it's Southampton at home. If they don't beat Southampton at home, then there really will be time to worry, because that is a game they have to win. So the fans are on his side. They don't like the players, but that might change quickly if they keep failing to win.
Everything's okay, Don? Everything's okay?
Nah. No, I didn't like the reaction from the Man U fans. I must admit that we've all been young players and we've all struggled. We've all had tough times, and it'll carry on. You see often managers, they put a sub on and take a young boy off. When you come on and go back off, it's quite brutal. I thought that was a bit unfair from the Man U fans, because, you know, it could have been any one of the team that got brought off last night, because they were a shambles. But I'd like to think this morning someone gets him in the office this morning and just sell an idea to him, just fib to him a little bit and just tell him how important he is. Tell him how great he's been, just lift his confidence, lift his spirits, dangle a little carrot saying, listen, make sure your attitude's good because you're still in contention for the Liverpool game. You'll be back in the team. Just give him that support, because if you don't, we've all seen young kids and it can be a brutal world at times. You wouldn't want to see him cast aside. So I'm looking now from the man management point of view, whether it's Amorim or someone from the coaching staff, just to make sure you have a little word in his ear and bring his spirits back up again.
Oh, I'm sure he'd love to have his spirits brought back up again. It's not going to work, is it? I mean, this is a player that's probably not good enough to play for Manchester United. You know, when you saw him play for Bologna, he was okay. When he was at Bayern, he didn't succeed there. And I never saw that he's got the attributes to be a top-class player. He's a good player. There's no doubt about that. But when something like that happens and the crowd bay for blood and they don't like you or they jeer you off, it's very, very difficult to come back. It doesn't matter what Amorim says to him this morning, or any man management or any psychologist says to him this morning. This player is going to be distraught, and his career at Manchester United is going to be destroyed. I can't see there is any way back. There's very few players. I think we saw it at Barcelona with one of the players at Barcelona who was being jeered off the field at one point but came back and did quite well. But most players, if the crowd don't like them, they never, ever fulfil their potential and never really get another chance.
It's massively divided opinion among the fan base, it seems, even on social media, Mark. We're seeing that many fans are saying he might not be good enough, but this wasn't the way to deal with it from Manchester United fans.
I think that's absolutely the way it is. I think from day one, Joshua Zirkzee hasn't looked like a Man United player. He's not quick enough. He doesn't move well enough. He doesn't show any goal threat. But, you know, it's not his fault he's a Man United player. He's not going to turn down the chance to sign for Man United if he's been offered the opportunity. So it's on the people who signed him and are putting him in the team. But there was a real change. Yes, there was that strange reaction when it was cheered when he was taken off. Then there was a little bit of booing, and as he was walking down the tunnel, there was applause. And I think the United fans, the majority of United fans, were kind of almost apologetic, thinking this can't happen. So I do think he'll get another opportunity. I think, and when he does get an opportunity, I think the fans will be on his side. But like Robbo says, he's not good enough, and you can have all the pats on the back and arms around the shoulder. He's not good enough to be a Man United player, and it's only prolonging his suffering really by, you know, pretending that he is. And I think there has been some links with him going back to Italy in January, which it's unlikely it'd be an admission of defeat on United's part to let him go back to, you know, Serie A 6 months after signing him, but that could be the only way out of this, because he isn't going to succeed at Man United. If they can cut the losses as quickly as they can, let him go to Juventus or Napoli, who have been interested, then they're going to have to do it, because Zirkzee doesn't look happy either, and I don't think there's going to be a way he can turn this around.
Why is he here, Mark, in the first place? Why is he at Manchester United?
Well, you could ask Dan Ashworth that question, but Dan Ashworth's no longer at Man United, is he? So Dan Ashworth led the recruitment in the summer, and this was a signing based on data. And, you know, Dan Ashworth was head of the recruitment department. He was championing the data that was used to sign Zirkzee, and it's just not come off. Now, the idea was that he was a relatively inexpensive signing at £35 million, but if he's not good enough, it's an expensive sign. It's a waste of money. So the United are trying to sign the best up-and-coming talent in Europe, and they just got this one wrong, totally wrong. You know, they signed the same kind of profile a year earlier when they signed Rasmus Højlund. He scored 2 goals this season in the Premier League. That's less than Zirkzee scored. £70 million they paid for him. And Højlund's the same. You know, Højlund doesn't get the same criticism.
Sorry. But then again, that shows exactly how bad some of these, the directors of football, when they want to buy people on statistics. You and I have seen a lot of Serie A football. Was Højlund good enough to come for that sort of figure, to come to Manchester United and have an impact? No, he wasn't. We saw him week in, week out for Atalanta. Not quite good enough. A decent player, but not good enough. We saw Zirkzee play for Bologna. He had a good season, but he wasn't outstanding. You wouldn't say there's a player that can go on and really dominate defenders in the Premier League. He's not going to have the pace to run in behind. He's not going to hold the ball up and link up the play. He's a good player, but he's not a great player or a very good player. And that's what you need when you go to watch play. So what was Dan Ashworth doing, looking at these two players, particularly, sorry, Højlund already come there, but Zirkzee, what was he doing when he was going to watch him? Or didn't he watch him? Did he just go off stats? Because that is an absolute disgrace if he's just gone off stats.
What do you think, Don?
Well, in terms of Zirkzee, I think they took a punt on a young player. That's my reading of the game. That's what I've been told from a Man United point of view, that they took a punt on a young player who they saw a bit of potential. I wouldn't imagine he's on huge wages. But I think, you know, when you simplify this whole thing, and I've had loads of chats with players and guys that I work with, and you look at the Man United team and squad, and you can say, well, how many Man United players get in the top four? How many Man United players get in the Arsenal team? 0. How many gets in the Liverpool team? 0. How many gets in the best Man City team? 0. How many gets in Chelsea's team? Maybe it's 1 or 2. But then you've got to go to Newcastle and say, how many gets in the Newcastle team? No one. Then you start going to the likes of Bournemouth and you go, how many gets in the Bournemouth team? And you go, well, maybe it's probably 3 or 4. And then you go to Villa and you go through the teams. And what you've got to understand is when you look at this group of players, they're just not good enough. De Ligt was never a Man United player. He bombed at Bayern, bombed at Juve. Maguire was on the way out. He's the one that deserves a little bit of credit, by the way.
He didn't bomb at Bayern and he didn't bomb at Juve.
But he's the one that deserves a little bit of credit, Harry Maguire, because at least he's fought back. And Harry Maguire last night got the captaincy, who was rumoured to be at the door. So you do look at the group of players.
Before you say a player bombs, Don, before you say a player bombs, make sure you get your facts right. Make sure you get your facts right.
They're not good enough.
He had a very good season, De Ligt, at Bayern Munich. The first season he was there, they really liked him, the fans.
Well,
the
not
second
towards
season,
the latter parts, because Eric Dyer was in the side over him. Eric Dyer was playing in front of him at one point.
But anyway, De Ligt.
Well,
so you're talking about them not being good enough. You're not being good. So you're not being good enough. De Ligt plays for the Dutch national team. Maguire plays for the English national team. Martinez is a World Cup player. Mainu was one of the best players at the European Championship. We talked about Ahmad being brilliant against Man City.
Young kid.
So he wasn't good enough against Man City.
Players,
so Mainu wasn't one of the best players for England. So if you can play for England, I'm sure you can play for Manchester United. I think whatever manager's been in, the players haven't been at their best, but there might be other reasons why the players haven't fulfilled their potentials. It's easy saying, oh, he's not good enough, he's not good enough, he's not good enough. It's an easy thing to say. As a pundit, it's an easy thing to say.
It's not an easy thing to say.
It is.
It's not. You do your homework, you do your research, and you watch a lot of football, and you realise this group of players are not good enough.
So you wouldn't have Maguire in the England team. You wouldn't have Martinez in the Argentinian side. You wouldn't have De Ligt in. Probably De Ligt is not in the national team.
I'm talking about Man United. I'm talking about Man United. I'm talking about. I'm not going to get into personal details saying I wouldn't want someone at my football club. I'm a Newcastle fan, Robbo. I wouldn't take many Man United players at Newcastle. I'd probably take 0, 1 at a push. So that's the barometer. That's the barometer we're looking at. We're looking at how many players in Man United be good enough to get in the very best teams in the Premier League. There ain't many.
They're not playing well enough at the moment, but over a period of time, those players were bought because they were decent players. Mazraoui is a decent player. Dalot is a decent player. There's lots of decent players there when fit. But there's a lot of decent players there.
Let's just go on
but they haven't been at them. Each manager hasn't been able to get the best out of them. That's the problem.
Let's just go on Dalot for a second. Let's just go on Dalot for a very quick second. So the manager wants to play with wing-backs. He hasn't got a left wing-back. So why on earth would you play wing-backs when Dalot's got to be shipped over from the right-hand side over to the left-hand side?
Exactly what I'm saying. There's the problem. Dalot's a good right-back and an excellent player, but he's playing at left wing-back, a position that doesn't suit him because the manager's playing him out there.
Robbo, he's not
an excellent player. So you're saying Dalot's a bad player? You're saying Dalot's a bad player?
No, you've said excellent. You've said excellent. Your words were excellent. I think he's an excellent player. He was better than Wan-Bissaka, who they bought for a lot of money. He's a good player, very good player, Dalot. No doubt about it. He's a good player. He's not excellent.
Augie, can you separate them, please, and tell us what level of player we are talking about here?
Diogo Dalot's not an excellent player. I'm with Don on this. I think he's a player that survived too long at Man United. He's not Man United level, but because they are so poor at the moment, he's standing out as a half-decent player because he runs a lot and he tries, but defensively he's all over the place and he's supposed to be a defensive player. So, yeah, he's He's an average player at best.